On September 6, 2021, in the middle of the night, at one of Israel's most highly secure prisons, 6 Palestinian men disappeared from their cells, leaving nothing but holes in the ground.
So secure, Israelis call it the safe.
It's such an embarrassment. They escaped a maximum security prison with a spoon.
Their escape left a hole in something else too, a long-told colonial myth that Israel and its prisons were unbreakable. See, Israeli prisons in Palestine aren't like prisons elsewhere.
Unlike other self-described democracies, torture in Israel is not outlawed.
The men, women, and children they hold in the thousands aren't criminals. They're the hostages of a colonial regime. And these are not the kind of prisons you break out of. They're the kind designed to break you, to isolate, humiliate, and crush the spirit. So when these 6 men liberated themselves, men who had lived their whole lives under occupation, moving from one kind of prison
with Israeli troops surrounding their homes
to another, they broke that illusion of control. And for a moment, they liberated all of Palestine. This is their story, and the story of the prisons that hold thousands like them. Hi everyone, it's Tala. Before we dive deeper, we want to give a special thank you to our supporters on Patreon. Doing this work takes time, resources, and editorial independence, so it wouldn't be possible without our supporters online. If you believe in what we're doing and want to be a part of this with us, you can join our Patreon. It's how we keep this going. Now back to the video. This is Gilboa Prison, a high-security facility in the settler colony that holds around 400 prisoners. Each cell contains a shower, a toilet, a fan, a hot plate, a kettle, and 8 beds. Our story begins in Section 2, Cell Number 5, where 5 men are being held. مناضل الانفعات أيهم كممجي يعقوب قادري محمد عارضة and his cousin Mahmoud Arda. One morning, a 6th prisoner, Zakaria Zbedi, was granted his request to transfer to their room, because it's from this room that these 6 men would crawl their way to freedom. All of these men were serving very long sentences and considered enemies of the settler colony, because they were all involved with the armed resistance.
Zakaria Zubeidi, for years one of Israel's most wanted.
To understand them and their stories, we need to understand the city they all come from. A city just kilometers away from the prison they're trapped in. Jenin, also known as a hotbed of Palestinian resistance.
The scene of uprisings, airstrikes, assassinations, and battles that have gone on for days.
يكاد أن نقول كل بيت في شهيد وأسير.
Jenin, along with the rest of the West Bank, has been under brutal military occupation since 1967, with soldiers and settlers terrorizing the city and its surrounding villages. Kamamji is from Kafardan.
Another person is in critical condition after being shot in the head.
Qadiri is from Bir el-Basha.
الرصاص كان علينا زي زخ المطر جوا في البيت.
انفعات is from Yabed.
كما ودعت البلدة عددا من أبنائها شهداء.
واعتقال عدد كبير من السكان.
Muhammad and Mahmoud Arda from Arrabe.
He's the 2nd child killed by Israeli forces in Jenin in 2 days. The Israeli military has been carrying out near daily raids across the territory.
And Zbedi is from the Jenin refugee camp, which has its own special history.
Where the Jenin brigades emerged as an armed group leading resistance against Israeli action.
كثير من شباب المخيم ما شافوا البحر ويمكن يشوفوا ناس استشهدوا وما يشوفوش البحر يعني.
Let's go back a bit. See, this was once all inhabited by Palestinians, free to move from city to city. Then, during the Nakba of 1948, Zionist militias destroyed hundreds of villages and displaced over 750,000 Palestinians. They called the land they conquered Israel. Jenin became a shelter for thousands displaced from Haifa and villages across northern Palestine. Many of them moved to the Jenin camp, which would become home to waves of Palestinian resistance fighters throughout the years.
جيش احتلال كان عم يشتغل منتب حاله بيتجوز عنده اولاد بدير باله على اهله.
Zbeidi grew up here and was 11 when the first intifada began, a popular uprising against the occupation forces. During protests, he was shot in the leg by soldiers, and then at 14 years old, he was imprisoned for the first time for throwing stones. He served 6 months. Around this time, Mahmoud Arda was first imprisoned at 15 for throwing a Molotov cocktail at occupation forces. He was sentenced to 4 years. Then came the second intifada. This uprising was marked by more armed resistance and planned operations within the settler colony. In retaliation, Israel began a campaign of mass arrests, so much so that they needed to build new prisons, like Gilboa. Zubeidi's mother was killed when she was shot in the neck through the window in her home. A few weeks later, his brother Taha was killed. Then, the occupation forces bulldozed the family home. And it's during this time that they launched a brutal 10-day assault on the camp.
Homes destroyed and many dead. The Palestinians call it a massacre.
كل ما تروح بجهة من المخيم لازم تلاقي مرة أو شخص بعيط لابنه لعداره لا مثلا فقيد مش لاقيه كل شخص في المخيم ما فيش حدا من المخيم يعني ما بكاش على اللي راح عليه بس هذا كله ما بهمنا.
Zbeidi would join the armed resistance and become the leader of the Al-Aqsa Martyr Brigades. At different points in their lives, the other 5 men would join the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, another armed resistance group, and they would each eventually be captured for operations against the settler colony. Which brings us to Mahmoud Arda, the mastermind behind the escape. In his time behind bars, he studied, memorized the Quran, and wrote books. He also tried escaping twice before, because from the day he was transferred to Gilboa prison, he knew there was a way out. See, beneath this highly secure prison was a structural flaw. Passages formed during the prison's construction. Passages that led beyond the prison walls. On December 14th, 2020, he started digging through the flooring in the bathroom of his cell. With time, he recruited others, and they took turns, using spoons, plates, and panhandles to dig, dumping the excavated dirt in the toilet, shower, garbage cans, and any hollow gaps in the prison wing. A prison guard noticed sand causing blockages in the sewage system, but thought nothing of it. They did this for almost a whole year, until one day, they cleared it. A date was set for the escape. But then a guard spotted some wet sand in the cell and said he'd check on it the next morning. And they couldn't wait any longer. So the plan was pushed up to that night. There's something you need to understand about these prisons. They're not designed to hold criminals. They are the institutional centerpiece of the military occupation, and their goal is to crush resistance. Here's how the system works. The entire West Bank is under military law, where Palestinians are tried and convicted by the settlers overseeing their occupation. The conviction rate is 99.74%. A quarter of Palestinians are even jailed indefinitely without trial or charges, a practice known as administrative detention. This can be renewed and extended with no explanation. At the time of the escape, Nfi'at had been held in Gilboa under administrative detention for 2 years. The occupation prisons are full of resistance fighters, teachers, political leaders, writers, elders, innocent men, women, and children.
In many cases, the Israeli army arrests children below the age of 12, which is the minimum age of criminal responsibility according to the Israeli military legal system itself.
Arresting children is part of the whole system. When you raid a house after midnight in order to arrest a 14-year-old boy, it's not just against the boy himself. It's against the whole family. Imagine the father and the mother that they cannot protect their son.
ايش؟ ايش ليه؟
شنين تدخل ايضا بكسا؟
في البيت اللي شو عشان طالعين؟ في البيت في البيت ميزان كفنين شو؟ ميزان كفنين
And abuse is rampant.
If this room could talk, it would scream. This is the archives of the Palestinian Prisoners' Society. There are stories of abuse, of sexual assault, starvation, humiliation, even mutilation.
This is how Israeli forces released the two boys after interrogating them for hours. Foil blankets wrapped around their bodies after being stripped to their underwear.
The goal of these prisons isn't to create law-abiding citizens. They are a settler colonial institution designed to intimidate the indigenous population and make freedom feel impossible. That's why prisoners are at the heart of the Palestinian struggle, and always have been. And why the escape of the Gilboa 6 shook the world. September 6th, 2021. At around 1 a.m., they lifted the floorboard covering the hole and went through, one at a time. Crawling through the passages, they left the prison compound and then tunneled their way up and out, eventually coming out of a hole just meters from a watchtower. The guard was asleep. Leaving on foot, they walked to a nearby town. A taxi driver had reported seeing suspicious men near the prison.
Gilboa?
And in the early hours of the morning, the prison guards did a head count and found 6 prisoners missing. The men heard that they'd been discovered over small radios they'd smuggled out with them, and that forces were deployed across the wall separating them from the West Bank and their home city of Jenin. So they split up. The 3 pairs set off on foot in different directions to go into hiding. And by morning, everyone knew of the 6 who escaped Gilboa. And the country was on fire.
ويحرج الجيش الإسرائيلي ومن ورائه المنظومة الأمنية الإسرائيلية برمتها.
The unbreakable, undefeatable prisons had been beaten by 6 men and their spoons. The settler colony was humiliated, and Palestinians from the river to the sea and beyond watched on in celebration and awe. These men did more than escape a prison. They cracked the myth of Israel's unbreakable walls, showing that even the strongest cage can't contain the desire to be free. Beyond the explicit physical violence of the prisons, there's the quieter kind of torture. One is being barred from seeing family, like all of these men endured in one way or another.
تقريبا 6 سنوات ما شافته.
6 سنوات.
6 سنوات ما زارته.
ممنوعة من الزيارة مثلا؟
ممنوعة أمنيا.
Another is prolonged time in solitary confinement. Ahmed Manasra was arrested at 13 years old. He spent 9 years in prison, and much of that time in solitary confinement. He developed severe mental health issues, suffering from paranoia and delusions. And then there's the medical neglect. Many Palestinians go unhealthy and develop serious illnesses in the occupation prisons, where they are mistreated and blocked from getting the treatment they need. Take the case of Walid Daqqa, a Palestinian writer, activist, and intellectual. He spent most of his life in prison. He eventually developed a rare type of cancer and was killed by being denied the adequate medical attention he needed. His body was not returned to his family for a burial and is still being held hostage by the occupation, a common Zionist practice. Instead, Israel keeps the bodies they hold hostage in what they call the cemetery of numbers.
There are 735 missing bodies in the cemetery of numbers and in Israeli morgues, he says.
And families aren't allowed to grieve in peace either.
إذ اقتحمت الشرطة الإسرائيلية خيمة العزاء وهدمتها.
The Zionist regime commonly uses collective punishment, intimidating family members and destroying the homes of resistance fighters. Which brings us back to the hunt.
As the search grows, so do the tensions. There are clashes on the streets, unrest in prisons, and Islamic Jihad threatens massive firepower if Jenin camp is entered or the prisoners harmed.
The Israelis assumed the men would be headed home, to Jenin, so they began terrorizing the men's communities and families. Many were taken into military detention and brutally interrogated. Israel upped defenses across the apartheid wall that separates it from the West Bank and peddled a story that they feared the men would carry out a terrorist attack. For 4 days, Israel was on lockdown and throwing everything it had at finding the 6 men. Until the first pair were spotted. In Nazareth, Mahmoud Arda and Yaqub Qadri were reported seen, and after a helicopter chase, captured. The pictures published by the Israeli media were meant to make them small, to minimize their triumph. But they had won, because what came with their recapture was the story of how they spent those days of freedom. And it's what the colonizers fear most. Not plotting terror attacks, but connecting to the homeland they've been barred from. This is a letter written by Mahmoud.
حاولت المجيء لأعانقك يا أمي قبل أن تغادر الدنيا، لكن الله قدر لنا غير ذلك. أنت في القلب والوجدان، وأبشرك بأنني أكلت التين في طول البلاد والصبر والرمان، وأكلت المعروف والسماق والزعتر البري، وأكلت الجوافة بعد حرمان 25 عاما، وكان في جعبتي علبة العسل هدية لك. وصعدت جبال فلسطين لساعات طويلة، ومررنا بالسهول الواسعة، وعلمت أن سهل عرابة بلدي قطعة صغيرة من سهول بيسان والناصرة.
And this is Qadri's lawyer.
ما أبرز ما جاء فيه أنه كان في جبال الكرمل، وهو من قرية المنسي بجانب حيفا. فهذا كان شيء أنا لغاية الآن اقشعر بدني عندما قال لي أنني كنت في بلدي سابقا في قرية المنسي في جبال الكرمل. أول فاكهة أكلها من بيارة بوملي، أكل التين وأكل الصبر، أكل البرتقال الأخضر. قلت له أنه ليس الموسم، قال لي أنني أكلته أخضر لأشعر ببرتقال فلسطين. أجمل 5 أيام في حياته لن ينساها بالمرة، وأنها كانت بالنسبة له حلم وتحقق.
A few hours after the first 2 were recaptured, the second pair were found.
Israeli police have caught 4 of the 6 Palestinians who escaped.
Muhammad Arda told his lawyer that in his time of freedom, he was able to roam the land and taste its olives and prickly pears, an experience that was worth the 22 years in prison. There's a word you'll hear a lot from Palestinians, and it's Sumud, or steadfastness. It's a principle and a way of life, of resisting every day by holding on and remaining steadfast. Prisoners are an incredible example of that, because despite the prison's every effort to break them, they refuse to cower and fear freedom, and transform the prison to a site of struggle, even a site of victory. Remember Walid Daqqa? Despite being in prison for decades, he still got married to the love of his life and conceived a daughter with her through smuggled sperm.
So this was written in 2011. I write to a child yet unborn. I write to an idea or a dream that intentionally or unintentionally frightens the jailer, even before becoming a reality.
They named their daughter Milad.
ميلاد أول زيارة عند أبوها كان عمرها 1.5 سنة. كان قاعد وببكي وكان الأسرى كلهم بغرفة الزيارة ببكوا. فكانت يعني زيارة ما بعرف إذا بيقدر الواحد يعبر عنها بالكلمات.
Will I stop dreaming? I'll continue to dream despite this cruel reality. I'll search for a meaning for life despite what I have already lost.
لمين بتهتفي أنت؟ لمين؟ لبابا. لبابا يا روحي.
But celebration in Palestine always carries the shadow of loss. Because freedom under occupation is never left unpunished. The last showdown would take place on the 19th of September, almost 2 weeks into the manhunt, in the place where the story began, the whole story, in Jenin. The occupation forces spent days trying to figure out how to enter the camp, protected by Palestinian resistance fighters. Eventually, Munadil and Fa'ad and Ayham Kamamji surrendered to protect the people sheltering them from harm. Kamamji would tell his lawyer, "I felt like I was in paradise when I entered Jenin on the 3rd day of our escape. My only wish was to visit my mother's grave, but I couldn't." Upon recapture, several of the men reported being beaten, tortured, and kept in solitary confinement. But their spirits remained high. That time would come, but at a huge cost.
This is dawn in Gaza City, the morning light illuminating a landscape of debris and rubble hiding the remains of many who were killed in Israel's attacks.
Since October 7th, we have watched a genocide unfold in real time. And that's only what the world managed to see. The regime's rage at Palestinians also manifested in the prisons. More than 18,500 Palestinians from the West Bank and Jerusalem were effectively kidnapped in the largest mass arrest campaign since the Second Intifada. And there was a drastic increase in physical torture, psychological abuse, sexual violence, and inhumane conditions.
לטעמי צריך להוריד אותם בכדור בראש. אנחנו ניתן להם את המינימום שמתחייב לפי החוק, לא יותר מזה.
In October 2023, Ala weighed 97 kilograms at arrest. Today, 57 kilos.
When I hugged my little girls, they told me, "Dad, you're hurting us." My bones were sticking out, causing them pain.
And these weren't even the worst prisons. In December 2023, a new, quote, detention site was set up in the Naqab Desert, Sde Teman.
It's a place the Israeli military doesn't want us to see.
Palestinians were abducted from Gaza en masse.
More than 400 healthcare workers from Gaza
were detained over the past 2 years.
Taken there blindfolded and shackled.
The restraints were so tight, they had to amputate a man's hand.
And then tortured.
Including waterboarding, sleep deprivation, starvation, electric shocks, and the release of threatening dogs.
Virtually naked and blindfolded, with hands and feet shackled to their beds and wearing diapers.
My hands were cuffed behind my back, my eyes were blindfolded and legs shackled. Then they released the dogs on us.
طبعا أنا في معتقل ستيمان اللي هو يقال عنه قهر رجال. تم التعذيب والضرب أن تم معاي وتم ضربي على رأسي. بعد تقريبا ساعتين تم فقد بصري.
And she was nude searched over and over again and filmed, and then she was raped twice by Israeli male soldiers, 2 of them at a time, while videotaping her.
In one case, a Palestinian man was brutally gang-raped by 10 soldiers. He suffered life-threatening injuries and had to have 20 operations. The video was leaked online.
Mobs of Israelis actually raided the facility in order to defend any soldiers from facing accountability.
עברנו בשנה ו4 חודשים האלה, אפשר לומר, גיהנום בכל המישורים.
אנחנו גאים שנבחרנו במשימה, קודם כל, המורכבת, להתעסק עם תתי אדם.
The streets flooded with people as fireworks exploded in the sky. After hours of delays, the buses carrying some of the 90 prisoners.
Then came the ceasefire agreement, and with it, the release of Palestinians who had been held hostage in Sde Teman.
Now thinner, visibly traumatized versions of who they were.
And many were returned as martyrs.
Gathered in a medical tent in Khan Yunis, family members steel themselves, looking to find evidence of their loved ones among the bodies returned by Israel. They are shown pictures of remains, badly decomposed and, according to medics, bearing signs of torture and execution.
There were bodies returned blindfolded, their hands tied behind their backs, one man with a rope around his neck, bodies that were shot at point-blank range, some with organs missing, and others crushed beneath tanks. Gaza paid a staggering price in trauma, destruction, and lives stolen. And yet in these same moments, life was returned to others. Palestinians from the West Bank and Jerusalem released from the prisons as part of the prisoner exchanges.
I was imprisoned back when this boy was still in his mother's womb. I had only been married for 4 months.
And amongst the hundreds were 4 familiar faces.
ايش يا محمود؟ ايه حابب الاولاد؟
اول مره بشوف انسان مثل هيك.
بجد والله؟
والله اول مره بحياتي بشوف واحد هالقد عمره.
من 30 سنه؟
32 سنه. انتوا بعض.
كتبت جمله لغايه الان نتذكرها انه لو كانت الحياه هذه الايام ال5 هذا يكفيني، لهالدرجه يكفيك 5 ايام خارج السجن؟
يعني يكفيني دقيقه واحده في رحاب الحريه ولا انا اعيش آلاف السنين في قيود الذل والهوان.
الحمد لله رب العالمين نلنا حريتنا من السجن الصغير، ولكننا حتى هذه اللحظة في سجن كبير.
شوف طبعا الاحتلال ما بتركش أي فرصة ولا أي فرصة مشان إنه ينغص عليك فرحتك أو يشعرك على إنك أنت مقيد. يعني هو بحاول يقيد أخرى مرة، مش الجسد. الجسد ممكن إنك تقيده، بحاول يقيد العزيمة، الإرادة، الروح. هو بيلعب على عامل النفسي في إعدائه لشعبنا الفلسطيني. والحمد لله رب العالمين إنه شعبنا الفلسطيني شعب عنيد.
موضوع صدمة الحرية أختي العزيزة، هذا أمر يعني لا يمكن وصفه إن لم تعيش الحالة. الحرية هي خاصية الإنسان، كما أن خاصية النار الإحراق، فإن خاصية الإنسان الحرية. فإذا ذهبت خاصية الإحراق من النار لا تصبح نارا، وعندما تنتزعين الحرية من الإنسان تنتزعين إنسانيته.
Israeli prisons are more than walls and cells. They are spaces suspended between life and death. The Palestinians held within them are hostages, examples being made of, or pending bargaining chips. They exist in limbo. The prisons are the physical embodiment of a fundamental Zionist tactic to crush hope, joy, and the very dream of freedom. The Gilboa 6 broke the myth of control and showed that struggle and joy cannot be caged, and that freedom cannot be chained. It lives in the spirit, not the body. The settler colony can shackle flesh, but every spirit that won't bend is its greatest defeat.